An imperial abbey was a religious establishment within the Holy Roman Empire which enjoyed the status of imperial immediacy and therefore was answerable directly to the emperor. The possession of imperial immediacy came with a unique form of territorial authority known as Landeshoheit, which carried with it nearly all the attributes of sovereignty. Particularly after the Peace of Westphalia, all entities of the empire possessing immediacy enjoyed and exercised de facto sovereign power. Any abbot or abbess, no matter how Lilliputian his or her domain, governed with basically the same political powers as those of any secular prince, such as levying taxes, rendering low and high justice, maintaining a standing army, and, if they were so inclined, dispatching embassies, declaring war, signing treaties, etc. About 45 imperial abbeys survived up to the mass secularization of 1802–03. The head of an imperial abbey was generally an imperial abbot or imperial abbess. Collectively, imperial abbots, provosts and priors were formerly known as Reichsprelaten. A small number of the larger and most prestigious establishments had the rank of princely abbeys, and were headed by a prince-abbot or a prince-provost, with status comparable to that of prince-bishops. Most, however, were imperial prelates and as such participated in a single collective vote in the imperial diet as members of the bench of prelates, later divided into the Swabian College of Imperial Prelates and the Rhenish College of Imperial Prelates. Despite the difference of status within the imperial diet, both the imperial prelates and the prince-abbots exercised the same degree of authority over their principality. Some abbeys, particularly in Switzerland, gained the status of princely abbeys during the Middle Ages or later, but they either didn't have a territory over which they ruled or they lost the territory after a short while. This was the case with Kreuzlingen, Allerheiligen, Einsiedeln, Muri and St. Maurice abbeys. One major exception was the large and powerful Abbey of St. Gall, which remained independent up to its dissolution during the Napoleonic period, despite the fact that, as a Swiss abbey, it had stopped taking part in the imperial diet and other institutions of the Holy Roman Empire once the independence of the Swiss Confederacy was recognized in 1648. Elsewhere, the Prince-Abbot of St. Blaise's Abbey in the Black Forest held that title, not on account of the status of the abbey, which was not immediate, but because it was conferred on him by the abbey's ownership of the immediate county of Bonndorf. Lists of imperial abbeys. The following list includes the imperial abbeys which had seat and voice at the Imperial Diet of 1792. They, along with the two Teutonic Order commanderies whose commanders ranked as prelates, are listed according to the voting order on the two benches of prelates of the Diet. Not shown are the abbeys of Stablo, Kempten and Corvey, whose abbots had princely status and sat on the ecclesiastical bench of the College of Ruling Princes. For additional information on individual abbeys, see list of imperial abbeys named in the matricle below this list. Bench of Swabian prelates, Bench of Rhineland prelates, list of imperial abbeys named in the matricle. The religious houses listed here as list A are those named in the matricle, or lists of those eligible to vote in the imperial diet, including those whose votes were collective rather than individual. 3 of these lists survive and are accessible from 1521, 1755 and 1792. This list includes the principalities, imperial abbeys, imperial colleges, imperial provostries or priories and the single imperial charter house. The word stift, meaning a collegiate foundation, a canonry, possibly belonging to a variety of different orders or to none at all, and either with or without rules and vows for either men or for women, has been left untranslated, except when it specifically refers to the chapter of the Church. Some of the imperial abbeys were dissolved during the Reformation, others were absorbed into other territories at various times in the general course of political life. Those in Alsace and Switzerland passed out of the empire in 1648, when Alsace was ceded to France and Switzerland became independent. The great majority of these religious bodies, however, were secularized during the brief period that included the French Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars, and their aftermath, especially as a result of the German mediatization of February 1803. Any that survived lost their imperial status when the Holy Roman Empire was wound up in 1806. Abbreviations. Description. An imperial status column. RA stands for Reichsabt, RF stands for Reichsfürstentum, RP stands for Reichspropstei. Lost. IMM, column, IMM, imperial immediacy, secularized, mediatized, Switzerland, Helvetic Republic, college column, RC stands for Rhenish College, SC stands for Swabian College, RF stands for Reichsfürst, i.e. the head of the house in question had an individual seat and voice in the imperial diet. There were 10 of these. List B. The matricle of 1521 included a number of religious houses which have not been identified. Inclusion in the 1521 Reichsmatrikel is not by itself conclusive evidence that a particular religious house was in fact an imperial abbey, and the status of the following abbey listed in the matricle is questionable in the absence of further confirmation from other sources. List C. Imperial abbeys not named in the matricle. For a variety of reasons, a quantity of religious houses that possessed, or claimed, the status of imperial immediacy either did not attend the imperial diet, or were not listed in the surviving matricle. The following list is very far from complete, and possibly some of those listed may not in fact have been immediate. Bibliography. In German, Matthew George, 1877, Die Klosterpolitik Kaiser Heinrichs II. Ein Beitrag zur Geschichte der Reichsabtien. Grunberg I. School. Greenwich, Max, 1908, Die Besetzung der Reichsabtien in den Jahren 1138–1209. Greifswald, Paulsen, Johannes, Die Abtswahlen in den Reichsabtien von 1024–1056. Ries, Heinrich, 1911, Die Besetzung der Reichsabtien in den Jahren 1056–1137. Feyerabend, Hans, 1913, REPR. 1971, Die politische Stellung der deutschen Reichsabtien während des Investiturstreits. Breslau 1913, Aalen 1971. Welt, Hans Peter 1970, Reichsabtei und König. Vogler, Thomas 2000, Die Reichsabtien der Benediktiner und das Königtum im Hohen Mittelalter.